Welcome to the AEN Stories channel.
I used to think I knew all the noises a house could make. The soft hum of the fridge at midnight. The bones of the place settling when the temperature drops. The garage door's hiccup before it wakes the whole street. Recently, though, we've been living with a new sound, silence from a 17-year-old who used to narrate everything from his homework to which team should have drafted which left fielder. Lucas had grown quiet in March and then built a home out of that quiet. You tell yourself it's adolescence. It's exams, girls, the first big life decisions pressing in. You don't want to be the dad who puts a microscope on ordinary teenage weather. Still, there were nights I'd linger in the hallway outside his room, listening to the muted clatter of keys and the little cough he does when he reads something funny and won't give himself away. Hannah didn't notice much at first. 12 means she was too busy being 12. But even she started asking, "Is Luke mad at me?" Like the air had changed and she wanted a thermostat for brothers. "Buddy," I'd say, hovering in his doorway, pretending I needed the laundry basket behind his desk, "You okay on calc?" He'd do the half smile. "I'm good, Dad." The kind of good you say when someone asks you how your leg is and you're hoping they won't make you pull up your pant leg. Rebecca chalked it up to stress. She was good at the optimism that looks like briskness. "Senior year is a lot," she'd say, swiping an errant crumb from the counter like she was tidying up the conversation. "He'll come out the other side." I tried to believe her, but there were little things. He'd start to say something and then decide against it, fingers tightening on the edge of the counter. He started walking Hannah to the bus stop again like he had when he was 13 and she was 8, some old protective instinct unmothballed and pressed into service. If Hannah left her water bottle in the car before practice, Lucas would notice and run it out. If Rebecca asked him to grab mail and he said he would, he did it in a hurry that didn't match the task, like the mailbox and the truth were the same distance away. In late September, we decided to have everyone over on a Sunday. No occasion we could say out loud, just a we're overdue dinner. My folks, Rebecca's parents, my brother's family, a couple we've known since before we had kids. Potluck, so the table would be crowded and we wouldn't have to be. I wanted a night where the noise was the good kind. The day of, I grilled chicken and cut fruit like I was getting graded on presentation. Rebecca moved around the kitchen with a lightness she gets when she's hosting. She's always been good at making a house feel like a warm place you get to enter instead of a museum you might break. She wore that soft blue sweater, the one Hannah likes to borrow. They sorted forks together, Hannah talking about the school play, Rebecca humming the wrong tune on purpose to make her laugh. For a second, I took a picture in my mind and told myself, "See? This is the story." My dad arrived early to help and eyeballed the grill like it had wronged him. My mom put flowers where Rebecca already had flowers and apologized without apologizing. Rebecca's parents came with a pie they'd never let us refuse. Lucas hovered, and I could feel him studying our faces like cliff notes for a test he didn't want to take. At 6, the house had that nice chaos. Friends at the island with wine, my brother on the deck with his eternal weather opinions, kids thread through knees and chair legs, the dog making bad decisions near the charcuterie board. Rebecca made a joke about my playlist being dad rock, and I pretended to be offended. It felt like a good joke to have. We sat. There's a geometry to those big meals, we almost always end up in the same spots. Rebecca to my left, Hannah next to her, Lucas across from me so he could pull faces when his grandfather recycled a story. He didn't, though. He looked like a kid trying to sit still during an earthquake. Rebecca's mom lifted her glass for a toast. She said something about being lucky. Not blessed, she knows better than to start that fight at our table, but lucky, in a world that doesn't do lucky often enough. We all made the right noises. Plates got passed, the easy questions floated. How's school? How's work? Which team is going to disappoint us this year? Halfway through, I saw Lucas stare at his fork like it had spoken to him. His jaw worked, like he was chewing something with no food involved. He set the fork down. He looked at me, then at Rebecca, then down the table at Hannah, who was arguing with my brother about whether pineapple belonged on pizza, and at the grandparents, their faces open and unready. "Dad," he said, and my whole body came to attention like the word had pulled a string. "I need to say something." "Buddy?" I kept my voice in the lane where you keep it when someone's about to tell you about a college rejection or a fender bender. Okay. He swallowed. He had Hannah's eyes in that moment, not the color, the earnestness, like telling the truth might actually matter. You don't know, he said. But you should. Mom's been. He looked at her and winced. Back in March she was with someone. I came home early. I saw. He didn't say the man's name. He didn't need to. He didn't say where. He didn't need to. He didn't even say the word, he left it hanging like a picture you keep meaning to straighten and never do. He turned to Hannah. I didn't tell you, he said, because I wanted to protect you. I didn't tell anybody, because telling makes it real and I was trying to make it not real. But it's killing me. The room made a sound I can only describe as before and after. Rebecca's hand went to her throat like a reflex learned in a different life. Lucas, she said, barely above a whisper. Lucas, no. My father set his glass down with a heavy clank, the glassware version of a swear. My mother said oh in the small way mothers do when their body knows something before their mind lets it in. Rebecca's father stared at the salt shaker like it might give him an alibi to hand out. Our friends looked down, because there isn't a polite place to put your eyes when a family you love is being moved from one room to another without warning. Hannah, the kid we'd all been aiming our best at, looked from her brother to her mother to me and then back. Her eyes filled so fast I could see the moment become water. No, she said. No. She pushed her chair back and it caught on the rug and the table wobbled and the gravy did the terrifying slow wave. She didn't run. She just sat smaller, clutching the napkin like a kite string in a storm. I looked at Rebecca. For the first time in our marriage, I saw her look for a version of the truth that might save her. I watched her reach for it, then drop her hand. Tom, she said. Please don't, I said, quietly, because there are words you say in a kitchen and there are words you say when there are grandparents and neighbors and a 12-year-old at the table. Not here. Not with all of them. Our friend Mark, God bless him, stood up and said, I'll help in the kitchen, and started collecting plates like that was his job, which it suddenly was. My brother followed. My mother rose and put her arm around Hannah's shoulders and asked her if she wanted to help fold napkins, as if napkins had ever needed us more. The noise started again, but it was the wrong noise. People pretending to do tasks is the saddest choir. Lucas sat very still, like a deer that finally decided to stop pretending the car isn't coming. He looked at me and I saw the thing I needed to see, he wasn't punishing anyone. He was drowning and had finally admitted it out loud. Lucas, I said, careful. Thank you for telling me. Thank you for telling us. I'm sorry you had to carry that. I wish you hadn't. He nodded and cried without drama. He wiped his face with his sleeve like he was 7. Rebecca stood up. I'll go, she said. I'll go. She looked at her parents, her eyes asking a question I couldn't decode, and at me, and at Hannah. I never wanted, she stopped. She really looked at Lucas, like she finally understood where her son had been living since March. I'm sorry, she said to him. It was either the bravest or the most efficient thing she could have done. Stay, I said, surprising myself. Not at this table. But stay. We'll do the guest room tonight. We're not evacuating our children from their house on a Sunday. She nodded. Okay. I asked our friends to take my parents to the living room, to tell stories loud enough to give us the gift of cover. I asked my brother to walk Hannah around the block and point out how the Jamesons finally painted their porch like they said they would. People did what I asked, grateful for verbs. It left the 4 of us in the kitchen, me, Rebecca, Lucas, and a bowl of salad that suddenly felt absurd. Do you want to tell me now? I asked Lucas, or later? Now, he said. If I don't, I won't. So he told me. He told me about a Tuesday in March when practice got cancelled and the coach forgot to send the group text, and he came home early to grab different cleats and heard laughter that wasn't supposed to be there. He told me about moving through the house in that careful way you do when you're not sure you want to arrive. He told me about stepping into the doorway and stepping back, about seeing too much and not enough, about how he stood in the garage for 20 minutes trying to decide if he had become a different person permanently. He told me about not telling anyone because he couldn't bear the way the telling would arrange the next months of our lives without our consent. He told me he thought it would be one night and then pretend, and that by April he was keeping time by how well he could act. Rebecca listened. She didn't try to fix the parts that made her smaller. She didn't try to rename any of the nouns. She kept her hands on the edge of the counter like she might float away without it. When he finished, she said, "I am sorry," again, to him, and then to me. "I ended it in June," she said, like a fact that could buy us back a few feet of shore. "I ended it and then I didn't know how to tell you without making Lucas the kid who broke the news. And then I proved that's exactly who I made him be. I am not a hero. I wanted to shout. I wanted to say every word people say in movies when anger is their oxygen. I could feel the blood in my neck coming to a boil. But there was a boy in the room who had built a dam in his chest and finally let some water through, and a girl down the block who would look up at the light in our window and decide which version of home she believed in, and there was the love of my life who had done something that didn't match that phrase and was nevertheless still the person whose laugh I'd know in the dark. "Okay," I said. "Here's what we're going to do." We made a map. Not because maps are magic, because maps are better than walking in circles. Rebecca would sleep in the guest room. Monday morning, I'd call a counselor. No contact with the man, at all. Full access to phones and accounts until I don't need access and she doesn't need me to need it. We would talk to Hannah separately, with me going first because 12 needs a father who says complete sentences without breaking their ends. We would talk to Lucas about guilt like it's a thing we can name and not a spirit that follows him to senior sunrise and sits next to him on AP tests. We would tell our parents only what they need to know to stop them from making this about their own old aches. We would ask our friends for grace and not for sides, and forgive them quietly if they picked anyway. "Will you go to counseling?" I asked Rebecca, even though I could hear the answer already sitting in her throat. "Yes," she said. "Every week. Alone and with you. With them if they want me." She looked at Lucas. "I will earn back whatever sliver of trust I can. And if I can't, I will accept it without making you parent me." Lucas nodded like he wanted to believe her and wasn't ready to decide. It was enough. We opened the back door and stood on the deck for a minute. The evening had that suburban hush that sounds like sprinklers and someone yelling across a yard about a lighter. My brother and Hannah came up the driveway, his hand doing those big gestures that make kids laugh even when they're pretending to be mad. She saw us and made herself taller. "Hey," I said, stepping toward her. "Walk with me?" We went down the steps and around to the side yard where the rhododendrons mind their own business. "Lucas told me some hard news," I said. "And it's true. You don't have to hold it or fix it. I will hold it. You get to be 12 and mad and sad and bored by all of it in the same hour." She looked at me, her mouth doing that wobble, then nodded and did the 12-year-old thing where you leap forward and hug so hard it's a legal tackle. "I hate it," she said into my shirt. "I know," I said into her hair. "Me too." Later, when the house had downgraded from panic to the low hum of people doing dishes because they can, I found Lucas on the back steps, head in his hands, elbows on his knees, lights from the neighbor's string bulbs making a dumb halo on his hoodie. "Hey," I said, sitting beside him, knees popping louder than dignity would like. "You did the hard right thing. I won't let anyone tell you different. Not your mom. Not your grandparents. Not me, even if I get stupid and start needing you to make me feel better." He nodded. "I couldn't carry it anymore," he said. "I thought if I said it, maybe it would be less heavy." "Is it?" I asked. He considered. "It's different heavy," he said. "Like when you stop holding your breath and your lungs hurt." "That's the honest kind," I said. "Pain you can metabolize." He laughed once. "Gross." "Science," I said, and he rolled his eyes like I'd always wanted him to again. We made an agreement, he could bring anything to me without it becoming a second job. If he needed me to call the coach and explain why he wasn't going to Saturday's film session, I'd do it. If he needed me not to, I'd keep my mouth shut. If Hannah had questions, we would answer those and not the ones that haven't been born yet. The next morning, I called a counselor my friend recommended after he walked through his own storm. The receptionist sounded like she'd been hired for her ability to make people believe chairs can hold them. "We have an opening Thursday," she said. "And a family slot Monday evening." "Both," I said. I also called the man I used to say hello to at the grocery co-op. He didn't answer. I left a message that was polite in a way I didn't know I had in me. "This is Tom Bennett," I said. "You know who I am. You are not to contact my wife or my children. Ever. If you do, you'll hear from someone who isn't me next time." I hung up before I said anything that would make a judge sigh at me later. Rebecca texted from the guest room mid-morning, "Thank you for not making last night worse." I typed and erased 3 times. Then I wrote, "Thank you for not lying about what he said." She sent back, "I won't lie again." I wanted to believe her. A new belief is a muscle that doesn't lift the same weight twice. At dinner that night, Hannah asked if Mom could sit across from her because geometry matters. Lucas shrugged the teenage shrug that covers 3 different decisions and said, "Whatever. We ate tacos because tacos are a form of mercy." Rebecca asked Lucas about a game. He answered in sentences, not paragraphs, but he answered. When the dog begged, Hannah fed him under the table and I pretended not to notice. The new sound in the house was still there, but it was softened by forks and little jokes and the mundane magic of people deciding to keep chewing. I don't know the ending. We go to counseling. Some sessions are us whisper yelling while the therapist says wildly true sentences like, "Anger is a boundary that learn to shout." Some sessions are Rebecca talking about March and how she started feeling like a ghost next to the woman she used to be and who helped her believe the ghost had a last name. Some sessions are Lucas and me, on a separate couch, making a jam out of guilt and relief and the weird question of whether secret keeping is a form of love or just a costume it wears. Hannah gets her own space with someone who knows how to speak tween without making it cute. At school, Lucas turns in a paper titled "Everything is About Force for Physics," and his teacher writes, "and friction." He brings it home like a trophy. Hannah lands a part in the school play where she gets to wear ridiculous sleeves and she teaches me her lines in the kitchen. Rebecca keeps showing up, early, even, to the rooms where accountability lives. She hands me her phone without me asking, and then one day I forget to look at it and realize that forgetting is its own kind of step. Some nights, the house feels like a hell breath. Some nights, it exhales. On the best ones, the old noises come back, fridge hum, late-night dishwater, the soft pat of a teenager stealing snacks he thinks are hidden. On the worst ones, I take a walk around the block at 11 p.m. and make a list of things I can fix with my hands in the morning: the squeaky hinge, the burned-out bulb, the loose board on the back steps. If you'd told me in March that the person who would crack this open would be my son, I would have told you that was too much to put on a kid. It was. He carried it anyway, because sometimes kids carry what we hand them and sometimes they carry what we don't. When he set it down, it made a sound like a house learning a new noise. We are learning it with him. We are trying to make sure the next sound is a softer one. We can't promise a quiet house. We can promise a truthful one. That has to be enough, for now. Thank you for listening my story. If you want more raw, real, and gripping stories like this one, subscribe to the AEN Stories channel. Your support keeps these stories alive.